And for more on Castro's life and legacy, we are joined by Fernando Menedez. He's a senior fellow for strategic initiatives at the Center for a Secure, Free Society. Welcome back to the broadcast.
Thank you for having me.
It has been 9 days now. Tell us about, in your mind, what is the legacy of Fidel Castro?
I think the primary legacy is endurance. Endurance after so many years, just being able to survive under very adverse situations and being able to, in fact, see U.S. administrations come and go. That, I think, is what will be recorded ultimately as his greatest legacy.
And how was he able to do this?
A combination of spinning a narrative about what was going on in Cuba, a combination of alliances around the world, and a combination of very unseemly repression at home.
He hadn't been in charge for years, as you know, obviously. Will there be an immediate effect on the government now that he's gone? Has his brother, Raul, been holding back on some policy for fear that his brother would disagree?
I was listening to Michael in his report, and I think that is the key question, is how much Fidel was actually holding Raul back in terms of the reforms, which are, to be honest, small and molasses-like. We will next have to see whether there's any kind of opening or whether there will be a step forward in some of these economic changes that Raul wants to make, because Fidel had been sitting on those.
What about social and political and everyday life changes? Like there are now hotspots for internet connection. Will we see more of that, do you think?
Again,
we'll have to wait and see.
We'll have to wait and see. The worst that could happen right now is a retrenchment. The worst that could happen would be a retrenchment where the repressive forces would clamp down on these small changes that have happened, and I think we have to keep an eye on that.
Fidel said he didn't want any public places named after him. He feared a cult of personality, quote. What do you make of that?
It's late by about 50 years. There has always been a cult of personality, although it wasn't official, but there's always been one. And right now, for example, when you see the demonstrations, they are orchestrating the Yo soy Fidel, which is I am Fidel. That's part of sort of reinforcing the narrative, if you will.
So Raul is expected to step down not too long from now. What will be next for Cuba after that?
After Raul, we'll have to see. The folks who are the next generation of Cubans. As a matter of fact, this is what I would call the end of the beginning. It's a phrase from Winston Churchill. It's not the beginning of the end, it's the end of the beginning. A generation has gone. A new generation will have to come forward. They didn't get to the positions they're in by expressing new ideas, if you will, but we will have to watch to see what that next generation of leadership puts forward to the Cuban people and to the world.
How do you think Raul is different from Fidel? I watched him when President Obama arrived and he greeted him and he looked genuinely pleased to see him.
Raul used to have a terrible reputation of being the bad brother, if you will. But the other reputation for Raul is that he is a pragmatist. He's less ideological than Fidel was. And so that's where we've seen some of these openings, some of these possibilities. Raul is perhaps trying to leave a different legacy. And he'll have about 2 more years to show us if anything new will actually come forward.
Let's talk about the millennials in Cuba. How big of a role do they play in politics?
They play a little role in politics, but they are the new Cuba. They didn't live through the era that brought on the revolution. The only thing they've ever seen is, the last 50 years or so of Fidel. And they are desperate to join the rest of the world, whether it's through the internet or through travel or through other experiences. They're like any millennials around the world. They want to be connected to the world. And the question is, will this system allow that, or will it bust asunder, if you will?
All righty, Fernando Menedez, thank you. Always good to see you. Appreciate it.
Likewise. Thank you.